Hello, guys. Welcome to part 8 of every movie I've ever seen. It's the 1970s to the 1980s this time. If I want to welcome you if you are new here, and I would appreciate you guys if you went to my channel to check out my other content as well. And if you are a returning subscriber, I appreciate you being here. And let's get into the video of every movie I've ever seen, part 8, the 1970s to the 1980s. First up is MASH, a comedy. This was turned into like a TV show, but the movie in itself, I've never seen the show, but the movie itself, it's okay in my opinion. Not really a huge fan, but yeah, it's just an okay movie to me. And then we have Patton, probably one of the greatest war films and one of the best monologues from George Scott in the film about Patton. Definitely a must-see biopic. And then we have Beneath the Planet of the Apes, the sequel to the original Planet of the Apes. This was a good movie. Was very surprised with this. It was actually entertaining too. And then we have the Out of Towners, the original with Jack Lemmon. I'm a huge fan of Jack Lemmon. He is hilarious, and this movie kind of reminds me of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, but the Out of Towners. It's a nice little comedy. And then we have John Wayne's Chisholm, a Western, kind of a interesting movie. And then we have the Aristocats, Disney's The Aristocats. This is like a childhood favorite of mine with my sisters and whatever. And there's a lot of great songs and all this kind of stuff. And yeah. And then up next is Vanishing Point, a very mysterious thriller with car chases and all that kind of stuff. It's a nice little thriller. And then we have George Lucas's THX 138, very like a experimental type film, I guess you could say, and it's was very interesting to watch. Would recommend watching it once just because it's George Lucas. And then we have Woody Allen's Bananas, kind of a strange comedy. And then we have Escape from the Planet of the Apes, probably my favorite of the sequels of the Planet of the Apes franchises. That isn't the prequels though, and this is actually kind of like a switch around with Planet of the Apes, kind of like it's the monkeys this time on trial, and you know they're in this human world. They've come back from the future and all that kind of stuff, and yeah, it's really interesting to watch. And then we have John Wayne's Big Jake, an aging Texas cattleman who has outlived his time swings into action again when outlaws kidnap his grandson. It's obviously a typical John Wayne Western. Then we have McCabe and Mrs. Miller, an okay 70s movie by Warren Beatty. Definitely would recommend watching this once. It's okay in my opinion. And then we have the musical Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory with Gene Wilder. This is actually an iconic one. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. It's actually entertaining, and they're actually making a prequel to this starring Timothy Chalamet as a musical as well, and I'm actually very curious to see that. So, and then we have Godzilla versus Hedorah. You're gonna see a lot on this list where I've actually watched all the Godzilla movies. It's not much to say about them because they're all cut and dry. And then we have The Last Picture Show with Jeff Bridges when he was younger, and it's kind of like a dramatic piece, you know, teenagers and all that kind of stuff. And then we have the original French Connection with Gene Hackman. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen like clips and whatever from the car chase from this movie. It's actually a nice little dramatic thriller. And then we have Disney's Bedknobs and Broomsticks. I guess I thought this was okay. Not that great because, I mean, I didn't even really grow up with it, but I'm sure if I grew up with it, I would have loved it, but watching it is just like, not really a big fan. And then we have The Fiddler on the Roof, a very fun musical about a poor man and his daughters, and one man comes along and wants to marry his daughter, and it's out of tradition and whatever, and hey, it's an enjoyable time. And then we have Steven Spielberg's Duel. Probably, believe this is his first movie that he ever made. And oh my word, is it so good? Duel. Oh my word, I'll never forget this movie when I first saw it. It's basically the movie from beginning to end. It's basically a small car being chased by a gigantic semi truck. That's all I'll say about it, and it's absolutely thrilling. And then we have James Bond's Diamonds and Forever with Sean Connery. Excuse me. Basically, hey, it's cut and dry. It's whatever, but hey, it's all these James Bond movies are worth watching at least once. Then we have a very controversial film, Clockwork Orange, starring Malcolm McDowell, and this is definitely one of Kubrick's, Stanley Kubrick's, probably controversial movie ever, and it's he's also directed 2001: A Space Odyssey. And this movie, it's about four guys. They're in a gang and all that kind of stuff, and it's what goes down. If you go to watch it, I highly recommend watching it with caution. And then we have Harold and Maude, a kind of a interesting movie, romantic movie type story between a 70-year-old woman and a young kid who's I believe 19 or 20 in this movie. And it's very interesting. And then we have the original Dirty Harry with Clint Eastwood, all the iconic lines, you to feel lunky punk. And then we have Straw Dogs, a very controversial film that is just hard to watch. That is just hard to watch, and I don't recommend getting into this movie too much. And then we have the musical Cabaret with Liza Minnelli. It's a stylish type film, very, very musical-ish. And then we have Silent Running, a great sci-fi film. I love the aesthetic to this and the way they go about with the robots and all this kind of stuff. Oh my word. The future is pretty great looking in this. It's pretty great. And then Godzilla vs. Gigan. And then we have the original The Godfather with Francis Ford Coppola directing, Al Pacino and Marlon Brando. I mean, what can I say that's already been said about this movie? But it's an absolute masterpiece. Then we have Solaris, a foreign film taking place in space and whatever. Oh, it's very, very mysterious with the way they go about things to really grab you in. It's very good. And then we have Alfred Hitchcock's Friendly with a very cliche type story. It's as either as beginning of Alfred Hitchcock or the ending of Alfred Hitchcock. It just gets kind of same old. But I still love him. It's probably still one of my favorite directors, and all the movies he has are worth watching once. And then we have Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. Not my favorite Planet of the Apes movie, but still worth watch once. And then we have Deliverance. Oh man, John Voight and Burt Reynolds. Man, this movie basically an adventure thriller. These guys are on the river. They come across these guys, and just chaos ensues. And man, definitely worth a watch. Then we have one of my favorite musicals, if not my favorite musical of all time, 1976, The Declaration of Independence. Not much else to say because it's fantastic and I highly recommend it. And then we have the original The Poseidon Adventure. I remember when I was a kid, this scared me so much when I was a kid, and this is an amazing movie, and how they did, the upside down sets and all that kind of stuff, man. I highly recommend this as well. And then we have Man of La Mancha. Not much to say about this movie because it's just boring. I don't really recommend this. I mean, if you have seen it and you love it, hey, props to you, but not to me. Then we have Cries and Whispers. Definitely a fun film, little thriller type drama by Ingmar Bergman. Oh man, like it's gets kind of emotional at times. And then we have Charlotte's Web, the original cartoon. Got the classic songs. Got Wilbur and Charlotte and all that kind of stuff. It's really, really good. Then we have Godspell. And then we have Soylent Green. Soylent Green is paper. You know, that iconic line from Charlton Heston. So good. Then we have the Western with Clint Eastwood, High Plains Drifter. We got Paper Moon, a lovely little father-daughter relationship movie. Oh, man. Well, these guys, they're down on their luck, and they're just trying to get by, and it's just a fantastic drama. So good. Then we have Battle for the Planet of the Apes, the next sequel in the Apes trilogy, franchise, whatever you want to call it. Then we have the next James Bond film, Live and Let Die. We have George Lucas's American Graffiti. A lot of people like this movie. I thought it was fine. Nothing to sneeze at. It was cool seeing Ron Howard and all these younger stars. And then we have Westworld, the original Westworld, not the TV show, but the movie with Michael Crichton and Yul Brynner. It's actually, I actually can't wait to watch the show, but this movie is actually really good, and I highly recommend it. It's like, if you've seen the show, you probably like the movie. And then we have the musical Jesus Christ Superstar, and you know, basically it's the musical of Jesus Christ in those last days and whatever. Then we have Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee. Then we have F for Fake, documentary by Orson Welles, talking about fakery. Like, people use illusions and all that kind of stuff to fake you out and all that kind of stuff. It's very, very good. And then we have Mean Streets with Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro. Then we have Badlands, a Bonnie and Clyde type story. Then we have one of my favorite of the animated Disney movies, Robin Hood. That opening whistle song is just so good. Absolutely love it. I'd whistle it, but I don't want to get claimed. And then we have The Wicker Man, the original Wicker Man, not the one with Nicolas Cage saying, "My eyes." And then we have Magnum Force, the next Dirty Harry movie in the franchise for Clint Eastwood. Then we have The Sting, a absolutely great thriller taking place in the 30s. Got Paul Newman and Robert Redford. Oof, man. This is one of those iconic pieces where it's about gangs and, you know, twists and turns and all that kind of stuff. So good. Then we have the original The Exorcist. I like this movie. Not as much as many people, because it's like, I didn't see it back in its day, but hey, this is an iconic piece of cinema, and I had to see it, and it's good. It's good. It's definitely worth watching. So, then we have kind of a controversial movie, Blazing Saddles, Mel Brooks. I mean, you know the controversy around this nowadays, and like all that kind of stuff. But it's still worth watching. I know it for a fact. Watch it. It's really hilarious. And then we have the next Steven Spielberg film, The Sugarland Express. It's a biopic about a woman who, you know, it's kind of like Bonnie and whatever, and she goes, you know, across the country and all that kind of stuff, robbing and all that kind of stuff. Then we have Francis Ford Coppola's The Conversation. Then we have Thunderbolt and Lightfoot. Then we have Chinatown with Roman Polanski and Jack Nicholson. Definitely one of those iconic movies. And then we have Where the Red Fern Grows. We have Death Wish, the original Death Wish. The Longest Yard. We have The Texas Chain Massacre, the original. We have The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3. We have the original Murder on the Orient Express, one of the greatest thrillers of all time, mystery whodunits, and one of the best endings of all time. it's like this is like a double feature you would want to do with Knives Out. It's so good. Then we have Man with the Golden Gun with James Bond. We have The Towering Inferno, about a movie kind of taking place in a 132-story building, and a party is at the top, and the fire breaks out in the middle, and it's a great thriller from beginning to end. Man, it's so good. And then we have Young Frankenstein. A lot of people like this. I'm not a huge fan. It's a parody spoof of Frankenstein and all that stuff, but it's a fun watch anyways. And then we have The Godfather Part 2, one of the greatest sequels of all time, if not one of the greatest films of all time. Not much I can say about this because it's already been said. And then we have The Strongest Man in the World. And then we have Monty Python and the Holy Grail, one of the greatest comedies of all time. I mean, if you have not seen this, you need to see it. It's hilarious. Then The French Connection 2. We have The Wind and the Lion. We have the original Jaws. Great thrillers. Great Steven Spielberg film. Really, really brought Steven Spielberg to the game. And the first blockbuster of all time. Man. And then we have The Picnic at Hanging Rock, a interesting little type movie where it's about a woman who goes missing and whatever, and it's just a emotional movie. Then we have Dog Day Afternoon with Al Pacino, Attica, that great line, you know that, and it's if you haven't seen it, you gotta see it. It's so good. Then we have the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Interesting musical. Then we have One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, one of my favorite movies. And going from that to with Jack Nicholson, man, taking place in a hospital, mental hospital, and one of the great villains of all time and all that kind of stuff. And then we have Barry Lyndon, a beautifully shot movie by Stanley Kubrick. Man, a time period piece, so good. Then we have Taxi Driver with Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro. One of my favorites of all time. Man, if you have not seen this, also see it as well, like I've been saying with other movies in the past. Man, All the President's Men. We have another Alfred Hitchcock family plot. In the Realms of the Senses, a beautiful foreign film. We have The Omen, an original horror movie. We got silent movie with Mel Brooks. This movie is actually silent. It's a spoof on silent movies, and I don't really recommend it. Then we have Logan's Run. We got The Outlaw Josie Wales with Clint Eastwood. We got The Shootist with John Wayne and James Stewart. This is probably, if I remember right, this is like one of John Wayne's last roles. And man, it's an emotional movie. It's watching John Wayne and James Stewart just interact with each other. It's so good. Then we have King Kong, the 70's version of King Kong. It's actually better than I was expecting. And then we have Marathon Man. We have Network. We have Carrie, a horror movie. And pretty iconic with where it goes and all that kind of stuff. And then we have Assault on Precinct 13. We have Rocky, favorite of mine, Sylvester Stallone. You know, that rags to riches type story. And then we have A Star is Born, the 70's version. I've seen actually all 4 versions of A Star is Born, and this is probably my third favorite of the 4. And then we have The Enforcer, the next Dirty Harry movie. We have Slapshot, a hockey movie that is a comedy. We have The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. We have a weird movie that I'm just was not into, Racerhead. We have Annie Hall with Woody Allen, probably Woody Allen's best movie. Then we have George Lucas's Star Wars. I mean, come on. Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher. Then we have A Bridge Too Far with Sean Connery. We have The Rescuers. We have The Spy Who Loved Me, another James Bond movie. We have The Duelist, a Ridley Scott film about Napoleon Bonaparte and how dueling was a thing back in the day. And then Pete's Dragon, not the remake, but the original, where this one's a musical, and it's actually got quite a few good songs. We have Close Encounters of the Third Kind, another Spielberg film, one of my favorite sci-fi films of all time. And the theme is amazing in this movie. It's so good, and UFOs, aliens, all that kind of stuff, man, so good. Then we have Saturday Night Fever with John Travolta. It's like, if you've never seen somebody dance before, John Travolta can dance. Man, he is fantastic. Then we have the comedy Up in Smoke. We have Revenge of the Pink Panther. I'm not a big fan of the older Pink Panther films all that much. We have Game of Death with Bruce Lee. We got one of my favorite films that I saw last year, Fedora with Billy Wilder. Man, this movie about a old Hollywood star who is trying to get back in the game and whatever. Oh my gosh, this movie is just so good. And then we have Jaws 2, which I was actually kind of surprised by this. It's not as bad as I was thinking it was going to be, but it's not as good as the first, but it is actually better than expected. Then we have Grease, another John Travolta film. What can I say? His dancing is fantastic. His singing is actually pretty good, too. Then we got the comedy Animal House. We got the original Dawn of the Dead by George A. Romero. We got Days of Heaven with Terrence Malick, probably one of the most beautifully shot films of all time. Then we got Drunken Master with Jackie Chan. We got Halloween, the original, with John Carpenter and Jamie Lee Curtis. We got Deer Hunter with Robert De Niro, the Vietnam type story. I'd say this movie is a little long. It's like 3 hours, but I would say the first hour, it feels like it could easily be just trimmed down to like 20 minutes, maybe 30, and it'd be a whole lot better movie. It's still really good, but I feel like the first hour is a bit unnecessary. And then we got Superman. We got Every Which Way But Loose, a funny Clint Eastwood movie where he's taking care of a orangutan, and a lot of hilarity ensues. We got the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Actually, never mind. Not the original. The remake, 70's version. The original, if you have not seen the original, you need to see it. It is really good. And then we have Escape from Alcatraz with Clint Eastwood again. A lot of Clint Eastwood movies. We got The Warriors. We got Hair. We got Phantasm. We got Mad Max, the original. We have Manhattan with Woody Allen. We have Apocalypse Now, a very interesting and intense war film with Marlon Brando. One of his role very interesting in this. And then we have Alien. I mean, I'm not gonna really say much because we all know. If you haven't seen it, you gotta watch it. We have Stalker. We have The Muppet Movie. We have Rocky 2. We have Moonraker, one of my favorite James Bond movies that are of the older ones. Then we have The Amityville Horror. We have Life of Brian. Star Trek: The Motion Picture, which this what I felt was like trying to be too much like a 2001: A Space Odyssey. It is absolutely atrocious. It is boring. It is not even worth watching. It's like if you want to watch the Star Trek movies, skip this one. Just go right to 2. And then we have Steven Spielberg's comedy 1941. I am not a huge fan of this. It's okay. And then we got The Jerk with Steve Martin. We got Lupin the Third, an anime. Kramer versus Kramer. Kind of like if you have seen Marriage Story, this is kind of like it, but it's Dustin Hoffman, Meryl Streep. Meryl Streep is fantastic. And then last but not least, Being There with Peter Sellers. It's a fun little, weird little kooky comedy. And that was my video of all the movies I've ever seen, part 8 from the 1970s to the 1980s. I want to thank you for being here. If you are new here, I appreciate it. And if you made it to the end of this video, go ahead and check out my channel for other content as well. And if you subscribe, don't forget to click that bell. And if you are a returning subscriber, I appreciate you as well. Stay random, guys.